Spring practice is underway at Nebraska. Simple question. Where do the Huskers most need to practice? That's next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in this episode.
All right, welcome. It is a Tuesday. Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone, and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic is with me. Day one of spring practice at Nebraska is in the books already. It is behind us. It was yesterday. Today is day two.
It was eventful. It was eventful, wasn't it, Connor?
I saw at least no less than 4 pictures from practice that we could pour over if you're interested in, looking at pictures.
We'll never get to live through day one of spring practice again. No. Memories are all we have.
Exactly. So day 2 is the real first day because that is the day that Matt Rhule speaks to the media. And then I think Thursday is another first day because that is the day where the media gets to go in and take a gander at some of the things that are going on for the first 20, 25 minutes of practice. Yes. So look forward to that this week. And we talked about also Nebraska's having its pro day today. Something we'll discuss a little bit later on, and a big opportunity for a couple guys who didn't get a chance to show their skills at the NFL Combine. Mm-hmm. But yesterday we talked about Dana Holgerson's offense and how it's sort of an underrated or under talked about storyline going into this. Let's flip over to the defense for something that is probably once again not receiving enough attention. There's 4 new assistant coaches over on the defensive side of the ball. There's a new coordinator who is not one of those 4 new coaches who was here last year. He just moves up, and John Butler. And I think maybe most importantly, an entirely new defensive line where you're replacing so much production that you've had for Matt Rhule's teams in the first 2 years at Nebraska. They're going to be depending on some transfers. They're going to be depending on some young core guys to be able to step in and take snaps really all across the board on defense. So the question here is this. I mean, how does this defense gel and come together, and can progress be made there this spring?
Yeah, much like we talked about Monday with the attention that had been paid, or lack of attention, I guess, that had been paid to Dana Holgerson's first offseason and how significant that can be for Nebraska. We probably haven't talked enough about how the Nebraska defense is going to tie all of this together. There's been plenty of talk about the new coaches, and we've heard from all of those assistants at this point discuss what their roles might be. But I think when you step back and you look at this defense as one unit, there are some significant challenges. It's maybe the biggest hurdle that Nebraska has to clear this spring. Like where Nebraska's at today on March 25th versus where it's going to be at on April 25th, I would hope that the biggest area of growth is on that defensive side in just coming together and learning under John Butler in solidifying a role that works for Nebraska with Phil Snow, in integrating Phil Simpson and Terry Braden and Addison Williams. It's a lot of new pieces. And I think there's maybe no fewer than three newcomers, 3 transfers who are legitimately expected to push for starting roles. It could be more than that by the time we get to August. Maybe Jalen George on the D line will step up and push for a starting role. He's injured and not going to be a part of this spring, which makes it even more challenging that you have some players who are injured. So the Dawson Merritt, a freshman who had been expected, maybe still is expected to be a piece of this defense, a rotational piece of this defense in 2025. He's out for the spring, but the players who are there and are new to this thing and are probably going to be a big part of this defense, you're looking at Andrew Marshall in the secondary, Dason McCullough, and Marcus Watson-Trent at the linebacker positions.
My current, so we got into this with the offense yesterday with the, it eventually goes into a conversation about expectations and sort of where you're at with it right now. And I think it's a good time to sort of take stock of that. So my current sort of thought on the defense is, yes, you are losing a ton of production from last year, whether it be up front with Hutmacher and Robinson, or in the middle with John Bullock, or in the back end with a guy like Isaac Gifford, who has been around for a long time. And there's more than just those guys. But you're losing a lot. I viewed that defense as a sturdy defense, without, for lack of a better word, right? A sturdy defense, right? They could hold up. They're a little bit bigger and more physical, and they were going to be, they were generally going to keep you in front of them. I view the change from a personnel standpoint that Nebraska's made this offseason, and maybe the coaches play into this. I think what's going to happen, or hopefully, I think from their standpoint, what is going to happen is they're going to get more athletic, they're going to get more explosive, and they will fit in tandem with an offense that we talked about yesterday, who probably stands to be a little bit more athletic and explosive as well. So I think that puzzle piece matches. That makes sense. But obviously it has to come together.
If they can avoid getting pushed around up front, then I think they're going to be fine. I have a lot of confidence in Rob Dvorak and the pieces that he's going to match at linebacker. I think Nebraska is going to be just fine at that jack position that Phil Simpson coaches with Willis McGahee and Dasan McCullough. I think they're going to be better in the secondary, because I think they're going to be able to play their experienced defenders at the spots that better suit them. Now, this is barring like a run of injuries among the cornerbacks or something like that. And then all of a sudden you have Marquise Buford and Malcolm Hartzog right back out there at those spots that just don't work as well for them. But if they're able to play safety, then I think that's like a signal that the secondary is in really good shape. The only place that I've got real questions about how this defense can come together is up front on the defensive line. And it isn't that Nebraska is lacking in players. I think Riley Van Poppel and Cam Lenhart and Elijah Judy all have the ability to do it, but can they do it at a level that Nebraska needs to play the kind of defense that it expects to play, that it expects to be a top 5 or 6 defense in the Big Ten? That's good. That means you're top 20 in the country.
Yep.
That's going to take a defensive line that's stout and is able to hold up. And I think if Terrence Knighton was up there running that thing, I wouldn't have as much concern, because in his first year in 2023, Nebraska had more unknowns on the defensive line coming in than it does right now. And he proved that he had all the ability to push the buttons that were needed and turned it into a good defensive line. We don't know that yet about Terry Braden. We don't know what he can do at the college level. We don't know what happens when he's in charge of the defensive line by himself, which was not the case for the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, he was running that alongside other coaches, not the number one in command of the D line. So he'll have help. He'll have help from Phil Snow and Matt Rhule, who's been a D line coach himself. But it's to me that's the key for Nebraska on defense, is how does that group up front come together?
And I think you can make up for some of what you're going to lose in, like I said before, sturdiness, right? Just those guys that are really, really dependable. And, you're putting Ty Robinson out there for like 80-85% of the snaps over, last year, right? Like, I think you can make up for some of that stuff by what you are theoretically going to gain from an explosiveness category. And by explosiveness, we're talking about sacks. We're talking about negative plays on defense. We're talking about turnovers. In the first 2 years, Rhule's defenses have gained 14 turnovers on defense in 2023 and 17 turnovers on defense in 2024. Is a marginal jump from year 1 to year 2. And maybe this is the year it jumps up a little bit more, even if you have to lose a little bit of that really, truly great, like, run stopping, like goal line stand defense that you've had over the last 2 years, which is a huge advantage for them. But a trade-off might be in the works here. I
think opponents are going to try to run the ball in Nebraska early in the season. That's That's going to be because you don't want to get into a situation with this Nebraska defense where you're throwing the ball 45 times a game. I think that's what I think Nebraska's strength ultimately on defense when we get into October is going to be pass rush, and much like with Tony White, creating havoc. I think this group potentially has more havoc creating athletes right now as we stand here at the end of March. Again, injuries and attrition can change that. I'm putting Javen Wright into that mix with the defense too, as we had a year ago, and then Nebraska got a very limited role from him because of the blood clots that returned, and presumably he's okay now. But so if they have him, he's a piece in creating havoc. But I think teams will try to slow down the pass rush. Teams will try to get in a position where Nebraska has to take Williams Nwaneri and Keona Davis off the field because they have to put their best run stopping group out there, and that could be something that is a weakness for Nebraska. We'll see.
Yeah, something to watch for this spring, or at least setting the table for some of the conversations that we're going to have defensively. When we return, some former Nebraska players will be going through their pro days today. Why is this such a big deal for Matt Rhule?
I think it is.
Mitch thinks it is. He'll tell you why next.
I'll tell you first, though, about the Armada Team of the Week. It's brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College Basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their teams forward. And this week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week is none other than the Arkansas Razorbacks, the one double-digit seed that remains in the NCAA tournament as we get to the Sweet 16. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way back through the most rugged conference in college basketball. That's debatable. Not only to make the NCAA tournament, but knocked off back-to-back national champion and Hall of Fame coaches en route to the Sweet 16. They accomplished this all without second leading scorer Boogie Fland for most of SEC play, and without leading scorer and rebounder Adu Thero so far in the NCAA tournament. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada Rogue or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, welcome back. Tuesday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you ahead of Nebraska's first media availability of the spring football season. That is today in Lincoln. Connor, you look surprised there. What are you surprised by this bit of news?
No, I'm not surprised. I'm just excited. It's
it is exciting. It is very exciting. Matt Rhule, I don't know what players we're going to hear from today. Could we hear from Dylan Raiola today, the quarterback, or will they save Dylan Raiola for the day of Dana Holgerson's comments, which will be Thursday? I don't know. I haven't had any discussions with the Nebraska folks about what to expect today. So I'm going to be surprised. Also today at the Hawks Championship Center, as we mentioned, and in the adjacent giant new Nebraska weight room, they will be holding Pro Day. So the Combine was last month, and that was a big day, a big week for Nebraska. Former Nebraska defensive lineman Ty Robinson, former Nebraska tight end Thomas Fedoni, Isaiah Nayer, the wide receiver, had a good Combine with his testing. Tommy Hill was also invited to that event and participated in some of the exercises, but was not able to go through the physical testing. So Tommy Hill should be at Pro Day today. It's an important day for him. Also, yes, also the likes of Nash Hutmacher, Bryce Benhart, Ben Scott, Jamal Banks, You could throw Isaac Gifford, John Bullock. I don't know. John Bullock continuing with this quest. I don't think we've heard anything different. So
usually you see guys just just work out just to see what kind of feedback they get if they're unsure, if they're on the fence.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know what could click. Like there have been players who were in this position, like in March before the NFL draft, who just didn't appear to have like the whole package to be an NFL player, and some GM or scout liked what they saw and thought, hey, you could be a nice piece for us. And the next thing you know, the guy's like 10 years into an NFL career.
I tell you what, too, there have been guys a lot worse with a lot less credentials than John Bullock to work out at Pro Day for Nebraska.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was just going through my head. I was thinking like, because sometimes you like someone like Nick Henrich last year, who was a similar kind of player at Nebraska to John Bullock, same position. The injuries that he had just caused him to say, I've had a good run, but I'm done with football. And I don't believe we've got any kind of announcements from anybody like that this year. Like the players, even the players who have had some injuries in their career, and like Fedoni and her are now out of the Nebraska program. Are they're very much invested in trying to find a future in football. I think, to get this conversation back to Nebraska, I think this is the most important pro day that has occurred at Nebraska in quite some time.
I need a case for this. Give it to me.
Yes. So you remember 2022. This is the last time that Nebraska made a significant dent in the NFL draft. You had Cam Jurgens and Cam Taylor-Britt as second-round picks, and they were combine guys. And, the combine guys will come to the pro day and can continue to impress the scouts and the GMs, the executives, head coaches sometimes come to this event too. But the combine guys will come and they'll still have conversations. Like they'll continue to extend the relationships that were created in Indianapolis and on other visits, the Senior Bowl or the East-West Shrine Game. And in 2022, Jurgens and Taylor-Britt, of course, were at Nebraska's pro day, and they went on to be second-round picks. That was a time in the trajectory of Scott Frost's program where things were kind of coming to a stop. What they didn't have was momentum entering the NFL draft on the NFL level and momentum within the program at the same time. And it appears that that's what Nebraska's got now, that they've got some momentum coming off of their first bowl game in 8 years. Things are looking up. They made noise in the transfer portal. They've remade the coaching staff. Rhule is relevant nationally with his opinions on the sport. There's people paying attention to Nebraska football, including prospective players. And they've got a guy in Ty Robinson who could be like Taylor-Britt and Jurgens, maybe a second-round pick. So I think when these things come together is when you can really make some hay with this time of year. If you're getting noticed for things that are happening in the college football realm, it sure helps to also get noticed because you're sending players to the NFL. Like that's a big step for a program that can combine those two things. And I think Rhule sees that opportunity, and it's one of the many reasons why he invests so much in the efforts of players like Fedoni and Robinson and all of them. Like even Isaiah Nair, who played at Nebraska just 1 year and essentially skipped the end of the season, skipped the bowl game, and he kind of checked out early in the Iowa game. Even with that, he's Rhule's all in. Like he's 100% positive with his case for Isaiah Nair to get into an NFL situation, because I think he understands the value that it can create for his program.
It's definitely a program under Matt Rhule that promotes this. I mean, listen to how often Rhule talks about it. Like, hey, we know what players want. Generally, the idea is they want to get to the NFL, and we want to show them that they can get to the NFL using us as a vehicle, and we'll use them, and we'll do that. Not that it's that transactional. He talks about it all the time, though. It comes up like once a press conference. And then look at what they do, like on social media. obviously there's the Nebraska guys over the last 2 years who have done whatever they've done in the NFL, or guys who have been in the league for a long time, like Levante David. You make a lot of, posts about him, but also guys who have played for Rhule at Temple and Baylor. Those guys get shout outs like on Nebraska's social media accounts, right? They're really trying to, make the case that this is a place where you can come and develop yourself and turn into an NFL football player by way of the University of Nebraska. So absolutely a high priority to them, no doubt about it. And the more guys you get in the league, the better chance you're going to have one that hits. And when you have one that hits, then absolutely that is a thing that recruits look at and they say, or transfer portal kids look at and they say, wow, I mean, that could be that's a place for me. That's a place where I could develop. Even, we do this in recruiting all the time too, like specific people from specific areas of the country, or they come from specific backgrounds. Like, it makes such a huge difference when you get a guy, let's say from, a transfer from the FCS level, and then he comes into Nebraska and he plays here for 1 year and he turns into an NFL wide receiver in Samori Toure or something like that. Like that's a big deal. So other FCS players look at that and they say, oh, wow, that happened to that guy. It could happen to me too. It's absolutely an important thing to have if you want to position yourself the way that Nebraska appears to want to position itself.
I think it's a great point that you make about Nebraska's own internal engines promoting Rhule players from his previous stops who were in the NFL. That's not something that would happen without his direct guidance to do it.
Totally.
There's nobody at Nebraska who would be looking at Deion Dawkins' career in the NFL or Hassan Reddick's career in the NFL and going, hey, that's something that we ought to promote here at Nebraska, unless the head coach himself or, like Sean Padden underneath the head coach was going to the social media people and saying, all right, we need to put something out about them because, they're big on Matt Rhule. And this is what we're trying to promote here. So that right there, it sheds some light on just how important Rhule sees this day today, because today is a huge day for getting Nebraska football players into NFL training camps and ultimately having NFL careers.
No doubt about it. All right. We are back after this, asking a few questions to ourselves before they get asked to Matt Rhule later on this morning and into the afternoon. What do those look like? What might they look like? And what might the conversations we'll be having after today look like? Coming back after this. But first, a word from our friends from Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trader. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, they have a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands. You'll be able to find exactly what you need at Supply House, delivered fast and delivered from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, they have excellent customer service, industry leading service. So you'll always be talking to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. It's time for you to do the same. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM, TM for TradeMaster, and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's with our friends from Supply House at supplyhouse.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Mitch, I imagine one of the questions that gets asked today to Matt Rhule is, or maybe several of the questions that get asked today, how far are we down the line as far as those pesky roster numbers are concerned, right? You're planning on 105 for the fall. You're over that limit right now, but not only that, when you look a little bit closer to the top of the depth chart, right? Where are we at on the first 22, the first 57? Like, how much do you know at this point? I imagine they'll sort of be batted down by Rhule, but he's the one who laid it out, a month or two ago. Hey, we got this 57, and that's our sort of active roster. So I wonder what they're sort of thinking on that in that mindset here as we start spring.
Yeah, I think something that we've learned with him, and this probably goes back to the middle of last season when all of this stuff started to get very real, and the terms of the house settlement came out, and you knew that the 105 was likely coming. One of the things, and revenue sharing, one of the things that we've learned is you probably don't just want to expect that he's going to take the route that you might think a coach would and not say very much about this stuff.
That's
because
true.
Usually when he gets asked about it, he says a lot. So it's good to continue asking questions and kind of continue to poke around in this area, because he might just tell you a lot more than you expect to hear from a coach. This opportunity on Tuesday to talk to him is good, because it's the third time that he's had a media session since the bowl game, and the second one was kind of like a total reset.
Yep.
After because it came so long after the first one. And there were
now
right.
you get some details.
Right. So now you can kind of build on that. Like the last time we talked to him was just a couple of weeks ago. So all of that, and that was like 40 minutes. So all of that stuff that was said then, we don't need to go rehash that. Like we don't need to talk about Mike Eckler again and like what he's going to bring to Nebraska football, because we heard that from Rhule already this month. So this is a chance to follow up on some of that stuff. I don't imagine he's going to go for 40 minutes today. I think he's probably going to go for like 15 to 20 at the most. And it's going to actually be football questions, which is refreshing. But of course, there are also going to be things about the roster. And I'm sure something will come up about NIL or rev share. So I do want to go there with decisions that have to be made. Like how many of them in my mind, I think there's like 5 to 10 spots that are up for grabs on this roster between now and August. And there's like 35 players or 30 some players going for that. Is Rhule is he gonna back me up on that? Is he gonna say something different?
First question is how was it today? How'd they look? Guys were moving around. They were it's been a good first 2 days. What else you guys got? I love it.
Yeah, so they practiced yesterday, Monday, and they're practicing on Tuesday. They'll get 4 practices in this week because he wants to take the weekend, this first weekend off. Is this what do we got? Is this the 30th? I don't know. He generally likes to take this first weekend and have a little extended break. So they're going 4 times, I believe. I know they're going Thursday. I don't know.
I'll look into it. Here,
we need to look. We'll get back to you on Wednesday about it.
I got it. So they practiced Monday. They're practicing Tuesday. Yeah. They're practicing Thursday, and they will practice Saturday. So
when's the weekend? The Easter weekend is when they take off, and that's
not till way later. That's not till
no.
middle toward the 20th.
The 20th.
They are taking that weekend off. So yeah,
I was only 3 weeks off.
Well, it's hard to tell when Easter is. I never know. Just some weekend. I like on a Friday, it's like it's Easter this weekend. You're like, oh, okay.
I started to say that. Like I started to think this is the weekend they take off, and then I like had these little wheels in my head saying, no, it's not this weekend, because Easter isn't until the middle of April this year. So never mind all of that. But they are practicing today. And I'm sure the first question, or one of the questions for Matt Rhule, will be, how do they look? And I think it's important to know, like, what have these first couple of days of spring practice looked like. 2 practices out of 15 is not like a tiny little sample size. If you're going to practice 30 times in preseason camp, like the first 2 days probably don't amount to all that much. But 2 out of 15, you're up over 10. They're 10% done, more than 10% done with the spring when they walk off the field today.
Yeah, and like you said before, you never know what you're going to get out of that. Like, how was it? Be like, I just thought we were I thought we were a little slow. And then you pick at that and you're like, oh, well, why was that? You know, what's going on with that? So yeah, I think there's there's value in that starting off right away. Any other things that are sort of, football questions for Rhule today that might come up?
I don't think he's really talked about the running back position. We've talked about it a ton. I think we've asked some assistant coaches about it, or maybe we haven't. Maybe it goes back into the season and talking to Dana Holgorsen about that. But because of all of the big picture issues and because we've reset the media sessions with Matt Rhule and like kind of stayed way up here above the head, and now we can get down like to chin level. I think it's time to ask him about what he sees at running back this year. Is it Emmett Johnson and then like everybody else is a long shot to get time in the rotation, or has somebody emerged? Is he gonna hype up Quentin Ives? Is he gonna hype up Mekhi Nelson? Like, what are his thoughts on having had these two freshmen, Jamarian Parker and Connor Booth, in the program for the better part of 3 months?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I'm excited to get to the football stuff, whether it be depth chart, individual players, things like that. I think there's a lot to dive into there because, like you said, Mitch, the most of the offseason has been big picture. What are we going to do with rev sharing and NIL and transfer portal and roster movements and stuff like that? So yeah, going to be getting to some football over the next couple of weeks. We'll cover it all here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Thank you for making this your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball. As we head into the second weekend of the tournament, you could be the most informed college basketball fan right now. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.